Looking for real stories that lift you up and light a fire inside? Welcome to Inspire and Impact, the podcast where purpose meets perseverance. This is where transformation begins and your story continues.
Welcome to the Inspire and Impact podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Rosenstein. Today, I have the honor of interviewing Michael Kurkowski. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate the invite. I'm excited to chat.
Can you share a little bit about yourself, your background, so the audience better understands who you are?
Sure. So I'm Michael Kurkowski because right now I'm a performance coach in both physical and mental performance. So I have my company Breakthrough Secrets, where I work with individuals of getting over the hump of the beginning success into the next level. Along with that, I host 2 podcasts of my own, The Strength Connection, where I connect with coaches and thought leaders around the world on their stories and insights into physical and mental performance. And then I do a local podcast called Inspire Saratoga, which is for my community in this area of people who are leading from the front, a lot of unsung heroes, people who I think are doing very inspiring things just to try and build my own community as well. So that is my main thing. Along with that, I'm a kettlebell enthusiast. I'm a book nerd, and that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much for sharing that. What does unshakable inner strength look like to you? I mean, something like I noticed, like you mentioned on your website.
So, what is inner strength? It's always an interesting thing. I'm always curious about the words that we use, right? And I think unshakable really means, if you go down to the foundation of stuff, right, is what are the foundational things that hold you up in the times that are most challenging? Because in reality, we all go through stuff. We all go through life. Life is hectic for all of us, right? So we're always the best when we're at our best, right? But can you continuously be the best when things don't go your way? I often say to my clients, life plays a professional defense. And most of the things that we focus on is the offensive game plans that we implement into place. That might be a fitness program. It might be nutrition. It might be mindset practices. It might be a plan to develop your business or your family, right? Those are all things where you have the ball in your hand and you're trying to go down and score a touchdown. But life has a great way of playing defense on us and trying to prevent us from doing those things, from obligations, from our own self-limiting beliefs. And so it's not just about focusing on having a great offense. You also need to understand what are the defenses that are coming up in your life and look at those objectively. And if you do that, then I think it's not about always raising your ceiling, but it's elevating your floor. Because if you keep elevating your floor, Daniel, then even when tough times come, you're not going to fall down as far as you may have once had. And if you keep doing that, then the tough days and the bad days that you had previously now all of a sudden aren't so bad. Because I think most of the days that we have in our life are going to be very routine, maybe mundane, like kind of some of those days where people say, same shit, different day, right? Those are the things that make up most of our time. So if you can keep elevating those days, not just focusing on the monumental achievements and the great days, then overall, that's going to build a better system of success for what you're trying to do for the goals that you have in your life.
Can you share with us, when was the last time you felt unstoppable yourself? And, how did you get to that point where you felt unstoppable?
I don't know if I ever fully feel unstoppable. I have challenges just like everybody that's coming in. I think the best approach that I just have is I go into every day with an intention. And at the end of the day, I count the daily wins that I had. I mean, if I'm really going to focus on the routine and the habit from there, I feel like I have an unstoppable mindset in a way where it doesn't mean that every day I feel at my best or everything is going linearly, progressively good. I really just focus on, as cliche of a term that it is, I've really built a foundation of gratitude. I feel every day that I am super grateful for everything that comes into the day, not just grateful for the good things that are going to happen, but everything that comes into my day. It could be a terrible day. I could be going through a bunch of stuff, but those days you can find strength in that just as much as any other day. So I think it's more about not a specific moment of feeling unstoppable. It's more knowing that whatever comes my way in this day is I'm able to handle it. And if I keep that focus and keep that mindset, then my good days are going to feel better, but my even poor days are going to feel that much better afterwards. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a very good response. Thank you. And you mentioned about gratitude. I mean, a lot of people talk about gratitude. I mean, what exactly does that do for you? Does it shift your mindset to think more positive? So you're having like a bad day. What in your world, how does gratitude impact the way you think or?
Yeah. So if you think about it, all of us have dealt with times of stress, anxiety, fear, right? Scientifically, you can't be grateful and afraid at the same time. It's two separate ends of it. So we say words like gratitude. What I look at a lot, Daniel, is I'm always curious about the words that we use, right? Because the words that we say to ourselves unconsciously and consciously, they make up a lot more of the story that we tell ourselves more than anything else. And the story that you're telling yourself is often going to lead into your actions, which ultimately going to lead into where you are in your life. So when I say a term gratitude, I've pondered this a lot over the years. What does that actually mean? And as I just stated before, I think gratitude is recognizing that everything does happen for a reason, right? And if you look at the stories that we all look at and aspire to, be more like, right? You can take a movie that really inspired you and stuff. It often comes from the times when people were at their lowest, or they really had to find strength within themselves physically or mentally and overcome that time. So we can easily look at the tough things that are going on in our lives. It might be a breakup. It might be a business that got lost. It might be financial struggle, or it might be you really just don't feel good in your body. Maybe you're overweight, or you feel, like you have some injuries that are coming up. And it's so easy to just say, woe is me. Why did this happen to me? And if you actually just flip that over and say, what is this teaching me at this time? Why is this happening for me rather than to me? That's a way that you can look at it in more of a positive light. So I think gratitude is looking that every day is an opportunity that we have. Okay. Every time you wake up in the morning, it's an opportunity that you have. What are you going to use with that opportunity? So I think if you can just be grateful for the opportunity, not the outcomes that you're going to get from that, because that's not within our control, but focusing on what can I be grateful for and what standards can I hold myself to today? That's a much better blueprint in creating success. And another just habit that I think, because I always look at from the theory and how do we actually put that into practice. One of the best things that I did years ago from a good friend of mine who taught me this is take every day at the end of it, and even just a couple of minutes, and just go over what are the daily wins that you had? What are the victories that you had? It could be as small as, I was in an uncomfortable situation where I really didn't want to speak up for myself, and I did. I said something. Or I actually went out and I said that I was going to go out and go for a walk today, and I did, even though that I didn't. Or sometimes I just followed exactly the plan that I got done, and I did it, and I didn't overthink it or overanalyze it. All those things we think of as mundane, or they're not monumental, so we don't think they're worthy of celebration. Those are the big things that that happen throughout the day. And if you go back then and look at all the small wins that you do over a year time, all of a sudden you realize that you did a lot more really good things that you completely forgot about, just from like recency bias. So that's where I think is the best way to really understand gratitude, not just for all the good things that are happening, but happy for all the things that are happening to you.
So thank you for sharing that gratitude practice. So like you're saying, like just doing that every day, that makes like a big difference. It recognizes the small wins, because I think that's making a really good point. A lot of people focus on the big wins, and then right away, like start to say, at least for me in my own, I can't speak for other people, but for myself, sometimes I do that as a professional marketer. Hey, what are the big drivers, the big results that I was looking for? And sometimes if I don't achieve those big results, I start getting hard on myself, saying, why didn't I get those results?
Yeah.
But sometimes you said, so I like that. I actually may start practicing what you just suggested.
Yeah. If you only focus on the big things, if you only focus on the big goal that you're going to get to, you're subconsciously making an agreement with yourself that you're not going to be happy until you get to that result. And I've seen this so much in the fitness world of working with people in physical health for a while is they want to lose 30 pounds, right? And the most common response you get, somebody wants to do that and they lose 3 pounds, right? Oh my God, great job. Like you're on the good process. The response, yeah, I've got a long way to go though. Like I've still got a lot to do. They don't want to celebrate that time of like actually making progress. And that's where most people fall behind, because if you only think that the end result is going to make you feel the best, what happens so often with that though, is then even if you do achieve it, what happens? The sun still shines the next day. And then, okay, I accomplished this. Where do I go next? Then you set the next big goal and then you make the next agreement to not be happy until you get to the next step afterwards. So you're giving yourself just a moment in time to be happy and be confident until you're on to the next thing versus, okay, what is the process that you're focusing through? Okay, you're making progress going forward. Okay, that's good. That's a big thing to celebrate. And that's when we talk about, again, another phrase that we use all the time, enjoy the process. What does that actually mean? In practice, celebrate every day. Okay, there's good things that you do every day, but more often is we don't look at them as victories because it's not the end result. It's not the big thing that you did. But building a business, building a marketing business, building a body that you want, building strength that you want, building a family, those are all the things that take patience and take consistency. If you don't enjoy the process of going through it, then inevitably there's going to be days when you're just like, screw it, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's why so many people yo-yo in success. They're good for a couple of months, and then they wane back and they go back into old habits. Then they're good for a couple months and then back and forth. And the yo-yo cycle just continues over and over again.
So I was curious to know, what compels you to like be a coach and want to help other people? Because I've met a lot of people, around the world. Even I find that most people just care about themselves. They're not interested in helping other people. What, inspires you to want to help others?
It's been a journey. I mean, I've been a coach now for 17 years. So probably the message or the reasoning behind it has evolved and changed over time. To go back, I always knew that I wanted to work in some capacity with people. My first thought was going into being a firefighter and wanted to be an EMT. I did that for a little bit and going that process. And then I found my way into fitness from, a little backstory on me is when I was 14 years old, I was an athlete growing up. I always loved sports and I wasn't the greatest of athletes. Like I was good, like I could hold my own, but I was never like the best on the team. So for me to really excel and keep evolving, I knew at an early age that practice and like the training time was the space that you could really go and get better. The games were always fun, but I kind of knew innately that practice was the space that you can really cultivate your craft and really work on that. So I kind of understood the process of training at an early age. When I was 14 years old, I had an injury. My femur slipped out of the growth plate on my left hip. It's called a slipped epiphysis, where I had to get a pin inserted into my hip in emergency surgery. That took me off my feet for almost a year and a half at that time. And it was a very interesting time for me because first, sports was kind of my identity. When I was growing up, all my friends were in sports. Like that's where I got a lot of my social connections. And I really liked the physicality of it. Now, all of a sudden I was sidelined for, 18 months and all of my friends kept going and they kept moving on and, going into sports. So I kind of lost some friends along that line. So it was kind of a very weird time for me kind of early on in high school. Fast forward when I was about 18, 19 years old is I kind of relit this dream of thinking I could be a professional baseball player. And I started getting in shape and I moved down to Florida and tried to do that route. But I got myself in really good shape and really kind of fell in love with the process of fitness and feeling really healthy and feeling really strong and confident in my body. When I moved back to my hometown in New York, was kind of at a lost spot, really didn't know the direction I wanted to go. I was just working at a restaurant and a good friend of mine was a personal trainer at this gym who also worked with me at the restaurant. I was kind of in a thought process of wanting to get back into really good shape. I let myself go a little bit. So I asked him if he would meet me for a consultation. And he introduced me to something called a functional movement screen, the FMS system. This is where you go through a series of body weight movements to understand asymmetries or compensations in your body that could lead to injuries or restrictions in your ceiling of where you can get to in physical performance. I went through that screen and I didn't even realize, Daniel, I had so many compensations and restrictions in my movement from this injury from 6-7 years ago that I wasn't even aware of in my own body, because the brain will figure out how to compensate for itself in order to move properly. So you can't see it yourself until you get a third eye on you to get into assessment. So he put me through a lot of corrective exercises to get my body in better balance. And just going through that, I felt unbelievable. I felt really empowered. And oh my God, like this is like an unbelievable thing. This meat suit that we walk around in all day of our body, there's a lot more going on with this and what it's capable of than I was ever aware of. So that's when I really kind of fell into going into a deep dive on human anatomy and physiology and just kind of doing that on my own dime till eventually my friend who became the manager of this gym kind of asked me, hey, did you ever think about personal training? I think you might be good at it. And I was like, what is it? Like, how do you do it? What's the process of it? And he introduced me to some certification programs and stuff. And I just decided kind of on a whim, yeah, let me see if this is something that I really like. And from being a bartender and just kind of, jobs when I was always in a social atmosphere, I was just very good at connecting with people, right off the bat. So I built a book of business very quickly and fell in love with just working with people, of programming them, of seeing the progress that they were making and seeing the joy and the changes that they were making in their life from changing their body. All of a sudden now they were looking at, what else can I do? All right. And I think that's an interesting thing about goal setting is oftentimes we meet somebody and you say, oh, this is the goal that I want to get to. And you hit that goal. All of a sudden that opens up another thing in your mind of, oh, if I achieve this, what else can I achieve? Now, all of a sudden, like other doors start opening up into your mind of what you're doing. So I just kind of started loving the process of like personal growth myself and then seeing what other people were doing. And I eventually became manager of that club myself. I managed that business for 10 years, moved off of that, joined a friend, and we built a studio in my area here in Saratoga Springs till eventually just a few years after a bunch of different changes from COVID and kind of some adjustments, I built my own business because I wanted to work more with people on the mental side of performance and how that connects with the physical side of fitness and bringing those two things together.
Wow, it's a really interesting story. I'm curious to know is like, you said before about sometimes like life has disruptions. How do you respond to those disruptions when it impacts like your health and your fitness? Do you have a particular like routine or mindset trick to get you like back on your feet and, start, you do the kettlebells or whatever exercise you do?
Sure. So the way I look at this is I came up with a program I use with my clients. We call it the highway of strength. Okay. So if you think about it, if you go on a 3-lane highway here in the US, right? So there's 3 different lanes and they all have a different meaning, right? So the left lane is the passing lane, right? That's the speed lane. That's when you're going a little bit faster and it's the fastest lane that's going on. The middle lane is kind of somewhere in the middle. That kind of sets the pace of where kind of the highway's going. And then you have the right lane. That's the cruise control lane. That's the carpool lane. It's the slowest lane, right? So every lane might have different cars going at different speeds. But what are they all doing? They're all moving forward. Okay. They're all progressing. So how I use this in the terms of developing a plan is oftentimes we think of fitness programs or we think of mindset programs as more of a train track. There's one way to do it. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm getting done. And there's no other way. If you derail off that at all, it's like a train track. Any different swing at all, the whole train derails. That's where most people think that in order to get to where they want to be is they need to do that. I need to have a mindset practice. I need to have my training 5 days a week. I need to do X, Y, Z, all this stuff. If you're trying to make new habits going on, that's going to take some time. That's going to take some consistency. And more often than not, if you only think of it as there's one way to do it, there's one track, Most people, yeah, I aimed for 5 days a week. I did get 3 days in, so that's okay. No, that's 60% of what you said you're going to do. What's a better way of approaching it is to be like, okay, like the middle lane. All right, this is our week that's coming up right now, Daniel. Okay, these are the things that we want to get done for the week. Okay, kind of like the expectations of what we're aiming for. All right, what if we have a little bit more juice, or what if we have a little bit more free time, or we want to boost it a little bit faster? This is the left lane. Maybe that's 1 or 2 things that we can do to add into this week. But then you go into the right lane, okay? If everything this week goes to shit, if this is a terrible week, you've got obligations that pop up, if you got, if you have a family, if a kid gets sick and things start derailing you in your schedule and stuff like that, if all the things that could happen do happen this week, what are the things that you're still going to get done and what you're still going to hold yourself to? And that's the right lane, or we call them the non-negotiables. Okay. So what we're doing is we're giving ourselves options of what we can do throughout the week. Yes, it's great. Like the middle lane is our target of what we're aiming for. But if all things do happen and life starts playing life at us, all right, this is our right lane. This is still what we're going to make sure that we get done. What I found is the key to this with mindset is a big thing that's an issue with most people is that they don't trust themselves that they're going to do what they say they're going to do because they failed numerous times. If you're an adult, if you're 35 or 40 or 50 years old, and you've been trying to succeed at a goal over and over again, and you keep failing, to say that you're 100% confident in your ability that you're going to get this done, well, you don't really have a track record of doing that. You need to build some self-trust that's going up right now. So if you have this down and then you focus on that right lane, no matter what, these are the things that I'm going to get done, then every time we go into a check-in, let's say we're meeting once a week to just check on what we did, and you keep holding that, then you are subconsciously building your self-trust that when you say you're going to do something, you get it done. And if you do that for a month, a couple months, all of a sudden a year where you've held to your non-negotiables, maybe it's not exactly what you wanted to do, the expectations that you had, but you still held to your non-negotiables, you've just built a year of doing exactly what you said you're going to do if everything in life starts, being tough on you. And that is the essence of confidence and self-confidence. And here's a weird stat for you, okay? They did this in 2017 is when they asked people, do you feel 100% confident that you can achieve all of the goals that you wanted to achieve in your life? 80% of them said no. So we don't have a information issue. We don't have a knowledge issue that's going on. We have a real issue with self-confidence and self-trust. So I think the best thing that as coaches, if any coaches listen to this or anybody that works with people, the best thing that we can do is help people instill self-confidence. And the best way that we can do that is getting people to trust in their own word. Okay. If I'm your coach or I'm working with you, you don't trust me more than you trust you. You're with you 24 hours a day. You have to trust your own mind more than you trust me. Otherwise, you're just holding on to me as your master. Okay. And you're not my slave. Okay. Eventually you want to get to a place where you are autonomous of doing this on your own. And the best way that you can do that is to build self-trust in yourself. So I think when life goes to hell and things start popping up, the best way you can do this is give yourself some options of, yeah, these are the expectations, what I'd like to do. This is how I can gain a little bit more traction, but these are my non-negotiables. These are the standards that I'm going to hold myself to.
Wow, that's really fabulous. And you really think different than a lot of other coaches and personal trainers I personally work with. I belonged to several gyms in the past, and I worked with coaches, trainers, and they're always trying to push me like harder and harder. If I ever couldn't lift the weights that they asked, they just get to pushing me. They're like, don't be a wimp. You can do this. You can do this. Keep pushing. But nobody expects you to have those 3 lanes where each week you feel a little bit different. And
sure, yeah. And there's a time and place for that, right? I mean, if we're trying to do something different, you do need to be pushed out of your comfort zone. And there is a time for tough love in there. But what I found is if you're just relying on a coach I tell this to my clients now, and this was a big revelation for me about a few years ago, I'll tell you a quick story. me and my former team, we had a studio where we had 150 members, and they came in and they were, doing our classes and we were instructing them. When COVID hit in New York, obviously things got locked down. We took our entire system of what we were doing in our studio and we put it online. Okay. We were delivering kettlebells to all of our members, like Santa Claus, like bringing them to their houses so they can keep going and keep working on their program while they were stuck in lockdown and at home. And we slowly saw people were doing that for a period of time, but then slowly they started to fall away. They weren't coming to the live classes anymore. They were kind of falling into low mood or, depression or sadness. And we started to ask a lot of our members, we would call them up and we were, hey, how's your spirits? We haven't seen you at classes. What's going on? How can we help? There was an answer that I got from a lot of people from that kind of shook me. And they said, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing if you're not there. And that was something that kind of a question that I was like, that's a really interesting response I got from numerous people. And what I realized after thinking about this for a bit is, when I was in front of you and telling you exactly what to do, how many repetitions to do and follow it along, you were doing very well. But as soon as I was removed out of the equation, you felt like you didn't know what to do. So as much as coaches often, we are trying to help people, we can easily subconsciously start enabling people to rely on us to tell them what to do. So we're not building actually a knowledge base or an autonomy in people of helping them succeed. And that's when I started looking at more of the psychology of success. What makes some people succeed for the long run and other people succeed for a short period of time and then fall off? More often than not is we are lending out our autonomy or lending out our motivation to some external factor. And that can work for a short period of time, but eventually, if you remove that out of the equation and all you have to rely on is yourself, then if you're only been relying on a coach or a mentor or a husband or a wife or a friend, if they're the only source that is making you do this, eventually that's going to fall away.
Wow, that's really interesting you said that, because that's what kind of happened to me. Also, it's like during COVID, I had to rely on myself, and everything's just like, take care of myself. So what you're saying is absolutely true. I mean, you talk a lot about psychology and the importance of mindset. If you could, advise people to reprogram, their mindset in just one area, what would that one area be?
Firstly, I would say if you're not doing a physical practice, do that first. I think a strong body flows downstream to a strong mind. And that is could be controversial or contrarian in many ways, but this is something I've thought about a lot over the past year and a half or so, is it's very easy to think that we need to be in this perfect state of mind or this clarity of mind all the time in order to take action. Okay. But more often than not is if you take action first and you start seeing success and benefits from that is going to flow downstream into building a better mindset. Okay. So that's the first thing. Okay. And this was a question I put out to a group that I work with. I'm like, what comes first, a strong body or a strong mind? So many people would respond, oh, strong mind. You need a strong mindset first. What was interesting is a lot of the people that were saying that was people I personally knew that were not doing anything physically and were procrastinating on a lot of the goals that they were having in their life. So I think the reason why I think you should focus on getting a physical practice first and feeling as good physically as possible is because it's objectively measurable. Okay. Objectively feeling better in your mindset is very challenging to do because our mind is filled with a bunch of different stuff. There's so much reflexive things that happen, throughout the day versus if you what is a strong mind? If we actually go into that, what's the definition of having a strong mindset? It's probably some peace of mind. It's probably a confidence that you're capable of doing the challenging things that you're able to do. It's probably a sense of empowerment that you feel really strong and capable of what's going on and that you can handle anything that comes at you. if you do that through the body, right? And all of a sudden you go from lifting 10 pounds to 20 pounds and 20 pounds to 50 pounds, objectively, you just got stronger. You can see that. Okay. So it is going to help you a lot more of getting into building a strong mindset versus the other way around. And I think if you only think that I need to be in this perfect state of mind before I can take action on stuff, it's very easy to procrastinate, because then you're going to have a day where you're going to just naturally be in low mood. You're not feeling like you're doing, like you feel like doing it. We all have that. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the strongest mentally focused person in the world. You have tough days, right? If you do have that down and you do want to focus more on mindset and getting that down, what I think is one of the best things to do is to get into a journaling practice. Okay. Write out some journaling prompts and ask yourself some good, powerful questions. Okay. I think to get better answers, you need to ask better questions. And one of the best things that I think you can do is to sit with yourself in a quiet environment and just let your thoughts just come out. Okay. The first time you do it and the first time you get your thoughts out, it's probably going to be dribble. It's probably going to be a lot of just unfocused busyness of just writing stuff out. But once you get through that and you clear the clutter out, more often than not, you're going to arrive at some right things to get into. And I think the best thing that we can do for ourselves is just spend a little bit more time with ourselves. Spend some time really with your thoughts and look at it objectively, right? I think thinking is a skill, just anything, Daniel, right? It's like most of us don't think. We overthink very well, right? And we analyze all these different things and it stays within our mind. But the best way that you can do that and get out of that monkey mind or that just kind of just busy mind is get it down on paper. Spend 15, 20 minutes just getting those things out on paper. And more often than not, you're going to find a little bit more clarity going forward.
There's like a lot of like health or fitness programs out there. What did you find frustrating about a lot of these programs out there that kind of compelled you to want to kind of create your own program?
The major factor is that the fitness industry and a lot of the marketing is always geared towards the beginner. It's always geared towards the person that's not doing anything, and it's short-term solutions. It's 6 weeks to do this. It's couch to 5K. It's all these short-term based goals that we have, right? More people, and the demographic that I talk with and work with a lot is not people who are at the beginning stages. Okay. That's a very easy stage. If you're going from 0 to 1, like that's a big shift. Everybody can do that. And that's where most people do very well. They do good for a month to 3 months or even 6 months. The challenging piece is once you get past the honeymoon stage and you get past the 75 hard or like the 30-day hole or all these short-term challenges, what do you do after that? There's a lot of time that you're going to have in your life afterwards, right? And then most people they program hop to the next thing because then it's a new feeling. It's like going into a relationship, right? It's the beginning of a brand new relationship when you meet somebody. It's very exciting, right? Because you don't know anything about this person. It's all like just attraction and just chemicals and stuff. Then if you're actually going to build a strong relationship, which eventually turns into a partnership and maybe a marriage, that initial attraction, like it starts to fade in some ways, right? Like you can keep it alive, but it's not nuanced anymore. Then you start to really figure out, am I compatible with this person? Is this somebody that we really align on all the different values that we do? And there's a lot of foundational things that you need to get into. And then you grow together from that time, right? If you don't, then what do? Okay, you have one relationship and then you jump to the next one and then you jump to the next one because you're searching for a feeling and searching for an emotion. And I think where so much of health and fitness markets to is trying to get into the emotional side of people, try and get into the like putting them down or like feeling bad. Oh, you don't feel good. You feel weak. Like you're trying to get this emotional feeling of this person's not feeling good at this moment. And that's a sales technique. It's kind of slimy. It's a little bit slick from there. And that's why so many people jump into 6-week challenges. It's not a long-term commitment. It's not a big thing that you need to do. Just jump into here, pay a couple $100 and then you do it, and then they just churn over and over again. But that's why most people, they jump onto a program and they only last for 2-3 months, and then they go to the next one. So that's why I wanted to look at this in just a different viewpoint of looking at somebody's life entirely, right? If you lose 30 pounds or 50 pounds, or if you get the body that you want, or you get to run like this, or you build your endurance, all the things that you want to do for your fitness, how is life different when you achieve that? What is like, how do you approach your day? What is actually, all right, you stepped into that day and everything that you just told me that you want to get to, we achieved. How is life different? Like, how are you approaching your day? And all of a sudden, that's a much different conversation from there. It might be a confidence. It might be they don't feel self-worth. They don't feel like they're capable of doing all the things, or meeting their partner, or building their business. All of a sudden, it's all these other things that are going on. And if we don't connect those other areas of our life with being better physically or in getting in better health, then eventually we're just going to fall away, okay? Because we're not connecting with what are the things that we really value in our life, okay? Everybody wants a better body. Everybody wants to drop a couple of pounds or feel a little bit better and all that stuff, right? We all want those things, right? But why? Like, what is it actually going to do for you? And I've had conversations with people where I've asked them that question, and they're really like, it's not really going to change much. I'm actually really happy with my life right now. Be like, okay, that's fine. Like, good. Then they kind of realize, oh yeah, things are actually pretty good right now, but I would like to do this because I think I can enhance this a little bit more. All right, now we're having more of a true conversations about what they're aiming for. So I think in a process of meeting somebody new, and if you're going to get into a coach-client relationship, is I could sell you in 30 minutes on a program to get you started on that, but I'm much more curious about what are the things that you really value in your life, and how does this connect? Because if we can connect those things together, then I know that the day that you wake up and you don't feel at your best, or you don't want to do your workout, or you don't want to do those things, if you know that by doing it, you're enhancing all these other things that you really value in your life, it's going to be a lot easier to get that done on those days. Again, we can all do it when we're feeling highly motivated and we're feeling really good. Can you keep doing it on the days when you're not at your best?
So how do you define success when it comes to people's, their health or fitness transformation? What does success look like?
It's so individualized, Daniel, like to the person. It's really hard to put a breakdown on that. I would say really two things on that is, are you living in peace with yourself? And are you confident in that you're fully capable of doing what you want to achieve in life? I think if you have those two things, then you can move mountains with confidence. It's just like faith, okay? If you have faith in yourself that whatever comes your way, you're capable of doing it, then you're going to get there, okay? Either you're going to stop one day or you're going to win. You just have to stay consistent on that course from there. But my focus of anybody that I would want to work with is, I say, I don't really care what goal you have right now. My job as a coach is to get you to build a system of success that you can achieve the next goal that you have after the one that you told me about today. Okay? Because anybody can just get to a goal, right? Can you repeat it and build a system of that over and over again? Okay. In marketing, like building a business, right? Anybody can get to a certain number at one point. Can you keep that going afterwards? The goal of business is not to win at business. The goal is to stay in business, right? It's to keep that going. It's the same with being healthy and being fit. The goal is not to win at fitness. It's to stay healthy and fit. And so the next goal that you have afterwards, do you know how you got to this goal? Okay. Do you know what to do on the days when life starts lifing on you and you just need to focus on your non-negotiables, knowing your highway of strength of there? Do you know the system of success that you had? If I all of a sudden tomorrow just said, I'm not taking clients anymore and you were off my book, right? Are you able to keep going afterwards and keep this system going for yourself? That ultimately is success to me. Is my friend told me this, who's a great coach. He has a great line that he tells all people that are interested in his program. He said, my goal with you is to create the most beautiful breakup between us. And I love that line because he says, there comes to a point where you say, I've got everything that I've needed from you. I am so good. I appreciate you. I'm ready to go on my own and do this and go to the next step. And I think that's absolutely lovely. And most coaches, we try and hold our clients hostage and try and keep them with us. Retention and being good at retention in business, it's not preventing people from leaving. It's giving them a reason to stay. So I think if you're a good coach or if you're a good, like whatever service business that you're in, if you have good retention, are you just holding people hostage because they think they can't do it without you? Or do they really enjoy working with you and you're giving them a reason to stay because they enjoy the process with you? I think that's always a good question to ask yourself, if you're a coach and you're working in business.
Can you maybe share with our audience, maybe like a simple like mindset practice that they can start like today to start, enhancing their overall health and fitness?
Absolutely. So actually, I'll send you a link as well if you want to put in the show notes for, I call it 5-minute mindset. This is a free video that's on my website in here. There's 2 things that I think you can do right away you do this for 30 days and you will change how you view your day and how you approach your day. And all it is bookending the day. Start the day with your intentions and end the day with wins. Okay. So let's start with intentions. Okay. Intentions is not just a to-do list for the day. It's not just the tasks that you're doing. Who do you want to be throughout the day? How do I want to present myself in the day? Okay. So if you think of it like by the end of tonight, if I put my head down on the pillow and I just finished this day, how do I want to view this previous day of how I was? Okay. Who was I? Was I somebody that approached my day with confidence and excitement? Did I want to be open and warm if I was talking with people? What are the things that you want to be? So instead of the to-do list, like a to-be list, like it's been told a million different times from there. But those are the intentions. So start the day with a couple intentions of how you want to approach your day in the work that you're doing. And at the end of the day, what went well today? What were the victories that you had for the day? Okay. And it could be the smallest things and it could be big things from there. I called my mom because I knew like she wasn't feeling good and I just wanted to check in with her. Okay. Actually, I chatted with a buddy of mine who I haven't talked with before and I just wanted to say hello. Or, I got outside, took a really nice, deep breath of fresh air, and it just cleared my mind from some of the stresses that I had throughout the day. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. This is subjective to you. Why this is so powerful is because if you start finishing the day with focusing on the positive, you will start to recognize the positives throughout the day that you're doing because you're going to write them down at the end of the day. So you're actually changing the neuroplasticity in your brain to start viewing the positives. And this is not a normal thing that most of us do, right? You can have a bunch of good things go on through the day, but if one really bad things happen, what do we harp on the end of the day? It's the negative thing, right? This is a way that you can actually start recognizing the good things first that are going on before you start to go into the negatives. And then you're not coming from a place of lacking, okay? You're always going to be able to succeed and to just aim or to work towards progress and get to the next thing. But if you really want to enjoy the process and focus on that patience and consistency, the best thing that you can do is just focus on the small wins.
What do you say to people that are struggling because, the health and fitness go together? And if somebody comes to you and says, I want to lose X amount of pounds, and they're doing the fitness thing, but they don't change like their diet. And because some people it's tough. They're used to eating a certain way and they can't give up certain foods, and they're having comfort foods because they like to have those comfort foods. I mean, what do you say to those people that, in one area, like that they're doing the fitness, but they're not doing the other area, they're not changing their eating habits?
I mean, to start with, it's like, why is this goal the goal? Like, why do you want to change? You're doing some good things now. You don't want to do this. Why? What is the ultimate goal? You want to get here? Okay. More often than not, we subconsciously do this. And I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just naturally how we are. We want the outcomes of changing without actually changing anything that we're doing. And that just doesn't work, right? I mean, it's just, okay, if you want to make $1 million, right? But the work that you're doing is making $80,000, for it, and you want to get there. Okay, you're probably going to have to change some of the things that you're doing in order to get there. How important is it for you to get here? Like, how big of a goal is this to get to? Okay, you want to drop this weight again? Okay, why? Like, how is life different if you get to this goal? And the other thing I ask is, what happens if you don't achieve this goal? What happens if you don't do this? Are you okay with that? And that's just, it's just a deep question to ponder. And more often it's, okay, just sit with some of these questions for a couple of minutes and then really figure out if this is the goal that you really want or not. And more often I think we have goals often because we think it's goals that we should have rather than what we actually really want to have. And I think if you're going towards something because it's something you think you should have, that's not going to work. For me, I really do not care what the goal is that you have, okay? If it aligns with what you really want and it's going to enrich your life into being the most peaceful, the most happy in your life, then go after it full force. But once you get that down and this is something that you really want to do, then it'd be like, okay, if you want to get here, then you got to make some changes on this. Okay, you said you didn't want to change your diet before. You haven't changed your diet and you haven't got there. You can keep going the same way that you're at, but you're probably going to arrive at the same situation that you're at here. Or do you want to give it the next 6 months and really give it everything that you got and see what happens from there? Because I think what happens too, Daniel, and this is the last thing I'll say on that is, we think often, specifically with something like nutrition, is that we come from it as we're going to have to deprive ourselves from all these different things that we have in order to achieve the goal. And that if we get to this goal of where we want to be, then we're going to have to live this completely different life of where we're at right now. And we don't want to sacrifice that. The reality is, if you do that and you get to that goal and that feels really good, and that's where you want to be, you're going to keep that going forward. You're going to change how you view your approach towards the day and how you approach towards life. I've seen this all the time with people. I used to see this all the time with people when I used to manage my club. Is my office was right in front of where everybody would come in to swipe in to come to the gym, right? And I would see people who just got started and they would come in and they would swipe and they would kind of shuffle their feet in. Almost, this is something new. You can see the body language in them. And more often than not, like a couple of months in or a few months in, I would see that same person and they would walk in with this swagger and like this, like almost energy with them. Like they'd swipe in and they'd walk in and it was just a different pace. It was just a different energy that they were putting out because they were making progress. They don't even recognize that they've actually shifted how they approach coming into the gym, but they've seen progress and they feel really good with what they're doing, that the way that they come in is so different than what they did before that I would oftentimes just grab them afterwards. Hey, so-and-so, do you know that you walk into the gym differently now than you did like months ago when you first came in? And they would crack up and just be like, like I didn't even realize it, but no, like I feel so good. I feel so energized when I come in here. I look forward to coming here now. And so all these little things start happening when we start making progress towards it. So the best thing that I could say to anybody is go all in, do your best that you can. And when you see progress, you're going to start to shift how you view these things. And the things that were once challenging at the beginning to make changes are going to start to not be as challenging once you start making progress. You're going to actually probably look forward to it.
What do you think is like the biggest mistake people make when it comes to achieving their fitness goals?
focusing on expectations over standards. So what I mean by that, to unpack that a little bit, is I think if I do X, Y, Z and I do all this plan, then by this date, I'm supposed to be at this spot and this is where I'm supposed to be. So always looking at where we're expected to be. So if you take it again with like weight loss, right? Oh, I did everything that I was supposed to do and I weighed myself in and I was a pound up. This isn't working, right? So we always focus on the expectations of what's going to happen, right? Been doing this for too long. Expectations are external and they're outside of our control, okay? Standards are internal. Those are things that you can control. So again, going back to the highway, right? If you focus on raising your standards and not your expectations, then you're always focusing on the things that you can control, okay? You can focus on what you can do today, okay? You can get a workout in, you can get you can focus on your nutrition, building a business, building in marketing like you do, right? You can only do so much of the things that you do. You don't know how the market's exactly going to react to a product or business that you're doing, right? So you can only focus on the habits and the consistency and the standards that you have. So I think the more that you focus on the standards that you hold yourself to versus the expectations of where you think you're supposed to be, that is the best shift that you can have. And, you know, if somebody drops 10 pounds in like a program, but they expected because their friend dropped 20 pounds, they think that they failed. No, you just dropped 10 pounds. You just did something really good, but you're focused on what you expected to happen. And that's when demoralization comes in or demotivation. And then this yo-yo cycle happens all the time, is because we think that everything's going to happen the way that we're supposed to. That's not how life goes. It's the same with if you're a single person and you go out expecting to find your spouse, like at the bar, right? The energy that you're going to bring into that night, like in how you talk to people, you can smell that a mile away. Like, you know exactly the depression that comes from somebody that's seeking that out versus going out and being like, all right, I'm going to go out and I'm going to just be an outgoing, excited person about going out. And I'm not going to expect to meet anybody. More often than not, that's when you find the people that you're really into. So again, it's focusing on the standards rather than the expectations. And if you do that, it's the best advice that I can give to anybody for not just the long game, but the short game as well.
And you mentioned like in the very beginning that you're a big kettlebell enthusiast. I'm just curious to know why kettlebells versus like lifting barbells or doing push-ups or yoga. What's so special about kettlebells that causes you to be so excited?
Sure. A disclaimer, I do not dislike any of those other things, okay? I'm a barbell instructor. I'm a body weight instructor. I've done all different practices. I think whatever is your thing that you really enjoy and you can be consistent with is a net positive. The kettlebell is a very interesting tool, okay? The versatility of it, of getting a lot done in a short period of time, is very powerful. I came from the school of strength like Strong First and the RKC, which was led by Pavel Tatsulin and his master instructors, of building strength as a skill. So what really intrigued me about this is I don't view things as just getting a good workout or just going in and just sweating and feeling an emotional connection with it. What the kettlebell did for me, implementing a system into it, is it gave me an opportunity that I can look at building skills and getting better at something. And why it resonated so much with me and resonated so much with the clients who I work with is because there's this thing in fitness that you think like you need to do a million different exercises, and to keep moving over and over again, right? No, you really don't need to do that. If you master a handful of exercises that get your whole body working all at once and treat your strength and treat your body as a skill that you can learn and develop, then you approach it more like a practice rather than a workout. And if you approach it like a practice, then you're always going in with an idea of just trying to get a little bit better each time. And that's where, for me, it just gave me something that I could focus on mastering more And mastery is something that you never fully arrive at where it is. It's just something that you can really work on honing in technique of getting a lot of things like honed in, kind of going deeper rather than wider in your approach. And I found that it cuts out a lot of the confusion and the bullshit out there of things that are really unnecessary. So I think if you think of it in the terms of knowledge versus wisdom, right? It's like knowledge is expansion, but wisdom is refinement, right? When you really get wise is by applying something and refining it down into what's the most dense, most simple way of approaching something. That's how the kettlebell really spoke to me, is it's not about doing a million different things mediocrely. It's doing a few things and doing them to an excellent level. And if you do that, then not only do you get stronger and you feel really good at it, but you're also building a system of success at the same time, where it's something that's repeatable. And it's like a tool that you have in your tool belt that regardless of what's going on in your life, you can still get better and you can still apply it into what you're aiming for.
I was curious to know if you had any stats about the program that you created yourself, about how many people that went through the program were able to achieve their goals versus not achieve. Do you have any stats on that? Was it more than 50% of the people that went through your program were they able to achieve their goals? You may not have. Do you have any stats?
The best stat that I have is I have a 90% retention rate over the last 5 years of people that I work with. So we've gone through a lot of different times. We've gone through a lot of different programs from there, but it's not really something that I really harp on and hone on as far as these people dropped XYZ pounds. I'm not a weight loss coach. That's part of what I do if that's part of the process that you're aiming for. But the main thing I do now with my program, which is the Unveiling Strength Project, which is a 12-week kind of beginner-based program of getting into. Most people from there that I have gone through with that are continuing in the practices that we worked with now 6 months to 2 years afterwards. So that's the best thing that I can really, say as far as the success rate that we're aiming for.
Now, I just want to be clear about the program that you're offering. Is it only available to local people in the Saratoga area in New York, or can people do it online?
No, the Unveiling Strength Project is a virtual program. So I have people from all over that do that program. So there's two things that we harp on from that. So I think of it as 4 different pillars of mastery. There's recovery, discovery, creation, and mastery. What the 12-week program does is we focus on the first 2 pillars, recovery and discovery. So recovery is stripping away all the things that you don't need anymore in your life and the things that have held you back in the past. That could be excess, scheduling things. It could be mindset work, and we need to work on that. And then the second part is discovery, which is pushing your threshold of what you're capable to do physically, mentally at that time. So we're really focusing on those 2 pillars to get down. Once you get through that and you go to the next step, that's going into creation, which is more individualizing a program and customizing it more around your life. So that is where your program, your physical and your, health self-care program should fit around your life, not the other way around. Because I think so many programs that people jump into, you have to fit your life around all the parameters that it says you need to do. But in reality, that doesn't fit most people. Everybody can jump in and do a 5-day-a-week plan for a short period of time, but that might not be conducive for somebody for a lifestyle. It might be 2 days a week, 3 days a week. It might be a little bit of mindset work on this day. It might be spotlighting, putting mental work in the left lane, physical work in the right lane, kind of working with the highway analogy. So that's the creative pillar. Till eventually we get to the 4th pillar, which is mastery. And this is really the sharpening of the saw. This is taking everything that you've done and now just building on all of these things and using that highway of strength analogy and a little bit more of a 10,000-foot view aim at your life.
Great. So if somebody was interested in joining your program or they had questions about our interview today, what's the best way they can reach out to you?
So they can go to my website, which is called mystrengthconnection.com, all one word. There you can jump in, book a call with me, and we'll jam on it. You can go check out my social media. I'm on Facebook, my name, Michael Kurkowski. I have a private Facebook group, which is called the Strength Connection. This is where I connect with more people individually on a social media platform. So if you have questions about stuff, I do a lot of like live streaming work on there and connecting with people that, so you can jump into that. That's a free group that you can jump into, or check out my podcast, which the one is called the Strength Connection. We've done 280 something episodes now over the last few years with some amazing coaches and thought leaders in all different areas of physical and mental strength. And then if you're local to my area, you want to jump on Inspire Saratoga, that's my local podcast that we do as well, which is just about the people in this area that are jumping on. And that's on all listening platforms or on YouTube. You can check that out.
Excellent. So, Michael, do you have any final words you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up our show for today?
I always leave a podcast with a quote that I love, which is from Beethoven, which is, "Do not just practice your art, but force your way into its secrets. For that and knowledge will raise you to the divine." I love this quote because it just always spoke to me as, instead of your art, you can just change that with your life. Don't just practice things in your life. Force your way into its secrets. Go all in. Go all in and being the best that you possibly can. Because if you do that, you're going to find out really the things that are best for you. And it's the places and the secrets that most people don't go to. Okay. For me, doing a deep dive with me or with you or anybody else that we all just have our own knowledge from our own experience. If you really want to go deep into it yourself, you've got to go into it wholeheartedly. So give it your all.
Michael, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a really good conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you. I was really surprised with some of your answers. You spoke really well. I mean, you didn't give me like a cookie cutter approach, and you definitely, felt like, you want to say what you want to say, which is really fantastic. I love people who are really authentic, really came through the conversation. So thank you so much for being you and sharing all your experience and knowledge with our audience. I'm sure they know a lot out of listening to this conversation.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it and enjoyed this conversation. So thank you so much for the invite, Daniel.